Our next speaker is Katarzyna Czerwonogora. Katarzyna is a PhD student at the Department of Jewish History at Tel Aviv University. Her research project, her dissertation project, is on the relationships between Zionism and feminism. She is also working at Yad Vashem, the Hadracha department? School for Holocaust Studies, at Yad Vashem. The title of her talk today is Too Jewish to be German, Too Zionist to be Jewish. Rahel Goitein, Straus's negotiation of identity, of identity in Imperial and Weimar Germany. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Anya, for organizing this panel. Thank you. So my promise is to get through Imperial Germany and Weimar Germany in 15 minutes, but I'm not sure if I'll get you there. So let's start. Biographical study has been used in historical research for some years already. However, it is still not a first-class citizen among the research tools. One of the reasons is its limitations, for example, the scope of the conclusions that we can draw. I will try to show today how I use biographical study to expand our understanding of some broader phenomena. I believe that even though a single life on the face of it does not have a great significance, when considered in the context of broader changes or in the context of the impact of some broader events or of the impact of the individual life on some broader events, you can use the study of biography to understand better historical phenomena. My research is on the intersection of Jewish studies, women's studies, and German studies. And I dare to say that it's complementary to Viola's research because it touches to the earlier period of German Jewish women's participation in the Zionist movement and their interest in Palestine. In particular, my question is about the consolidation of Zionist women's movement in Germany. So I'm asking, why was that Jewish women in Germany joined the Zionist movement and established their own organizations? Historically, this occurred in the beginning of the 20th century, around 1908. Verband Jüdischer Frauen für Kulturarbeit in Palästina was established, which was the biggest and the most significant organization of Zionist women, and there has been some research about this organization. For example, Tamara Orm, in her quite well-grounded study, explained that the emergence of German Zionist women's organization was an expression of these women's search for equality in Zionist movement. So in other words, when Zionist women in Germany established their own organizations, their goal was to have a better control of their projects in Palestine and in Germany. The Zionist movement was institutionalized in 1897 with the First World Zionist Congress. And no women were in the board of the World Zionist Organization, and no women were also on the boards of the local Zionist organizations in Poland, Germany, no Poland then, but in Russia, Germany, or other countries. So it's historically true that for many women, establishing their own organization was a way to have their own budget and have their own boards in order to have a contribution to the Zionist project. However, we can see more about the reasons behind this self-organization. And from my research, it shows that another reason for Zionist women's self-organization was their marginalization experienced in women's organizations. And I'm going to show it through the biography of one woman, Rahel Goitein Straus, who was a participant of Zionist women's movements and women's movements in Germany. Goitein Straus was born in 1881 in Karlsruhe, so it's peripheral from Berlin. And she grew up in a traditionally religious family and became an early German Jewish gynecologist. She was actually the first female student at the medical department at the Heidelberg University, and then became a member of German and Jewish women's organizations, also author and educator. In 1933, she immigrated to Palestine and died here in Israel in 1963. Not so long before she died, she published an autobiography, Wir lebten in Deutschland, which is the main source for my study. She also left a collection of letters to her daughters and sons, as well as many published texts in Zionist and women's press. So there is a lot of material that we can collect in order to trace her individual life and what's going on around. We can connect it to the broader circumstances. So in order to understand the significance of her biography for this bigger question of why Jewish women joined the Zionist movement, I studied in detail her whole life trajectory, and I identified 3 periods of her self-identification and affiliation to social and political organizations. And you have them also on the papers that I send around. So the first period, to the periods. These 3 periods, I think, reflect also some more general atmosphere in Germany, and particularly in German women's organizations. So the first period I call a Zionist Jew at home, a German feminist in the street, and it is of course a quotation or paraphrase of the sentence. To be a man in the street and a Jew at home, which was an expression of Jewish assimilation to German bourgeois culture. At that period, Goitein Straus enjoys from the benefits of Jewish assimilation to German society. As a young woman, she studies in the first girls' gymnasium in Karlsruhe, first Mädchen Gymnasium, where she takes final exams that enables her to study at the Heidelberg University, first as a free listener and then as a full student. And she's very involved in the struggle of German women for education. Her Jewish identity doesn't really matter at that time in her public life. Even though she comes from a religious house, her father was a rabbi, and she received a religious upbringing and has a very strong Jewish identification and even Zionist identification, because in that period she also gets to meet some Hovevei Zion members, so Russian Jews who arrive in Germany on their way to Palestine and share with her the dream of a Jewish state in Palestine and tell her about the rising anti-Semitism in different places. She cultivates all those Jewish feelings at home with her friends. She establishes an intimate Zionist study circle with her brother, and it's all at home. While on the street, she's becoming a German feminist. She wears the clothes of German feminists, which fit her very well, and in her matriculation speech, she fully expresses her sense of affiliation to the German society, or even to the avant-garde of the German society, which is the feminist movement. Now, the second period, which I call becoming visible, and that's also a quotation from the book Passing Illusions, Jewish Visibility in Weimar, Germany. is a period when Rahel Goitein-Strauss' Jewish origin and her Zionist views become significant, become visible. In 1905, right after she graduates, her friends from Students' Association, Alt-Heidelbergerinnen, exclude her because of her Jewish origin. And that incident is only a minor manifestation of a broader wave of marginalization of Jewish women from the German women's movements. Before, Jewish women were active members of these feminist movements, and in the decade before World War I, suddenly their Jewish origin becomes to matter. They are not so welcomed as leaders of women's organizations, and they feel there is a gap between them and between friends from feminist groups. And that's a late expression of the first anti-Semitic backlash that German Jews experienced, and that's of course connected, this delay is connected to the fact that this is only now when Jewish women enter public space and enter universities. And if Jewish men have already established their separate organizations 10, 15 years earlier, now Jewish women experience the same marginalization as Jewish men. What happens with Goitein-Strauss when she experiences that? Well, she turns for the first time in her life to Jewish women's organizations, and she tries to become a Jewish feminist, a German Jewish feminist. And the problem is that she's not so welcomed with her Zionist views there. Zionism in that period under discussion is a threat for those German Jews, or the majority of German Jews, of course, who hope for full integration. And her career in Jewish women's organizations is not so promising anymore as she thought. So let's look at two examples of that. In Munich, Goitein-Strauss becomes active in Israelite Youth Aid, Israelitische Jugendhilfe, a modern Jewish women's philanthropist organization established by Clementine Kremer. She gave lectures about girls' hygiene, and engaged in organizations' weekly afternoon club for young women. So like other women who contributed to the operation of the organization, she could participate in its board sessions. However, it kept striking her that, and I quote, "No matter how punctually I was, other ladies were already fully engaged in a talk." She did not receive any official response when asked how that was possible, but in a private talk, a friend disclosed to her that the board did not appreciate Goitein-Strauss' Zionist views. Therefore, the board always invited her to join later. She went to the president of the organization to ask if that was true, and indeed, they told her, yeah, well, your Zionist views are not so welcome. So you're welcome to contribute to the organization, but you will not become our representative or leader. A very similar dynamic happened in the Jewish Women's League. This was the biggest Jewish women's organization that was established in 1904, and it represented 50,000 Jewish women in Germany, so it's like enormous. And Goitein-Strauss also joined this Munich branch of the organization, and she even became its delegate to one of the conferences. In 1910, the League was looking to elect a woman from South Germany to become its leader, because it was not so popular in this part of the country. And Goitein-Strauss was a good candidate. She was young and professional, a new Jewish woman, married to a prominent Jewish family, which I didn't mention, but that was a fact. But for some reason, the board came up with many problems. So according to Goitein-Strauss, they maintained that her young age, demanding profession, and being busy with her eight-month-old baby would not allow her to participate fully in the sessions. Eventually, a delegate from Breslau, Paula Ollendorf, declared, "Let us be honest, all these are not the reasons. We do not want a Zionist on the board, so we reject Dr. Strauss." And I will not go into details of this organization's attitude to Palestine or Zionist movement. but we can obviously see that she's being pushed more and more to the wall. No chances for a feminist career in German women's organizations, and also not so many chances for a feminist career in Jewish women's organizations. And this is when Goitein Straus joins the Verband Jüdischer Frauen für Kulturarbeit in Palästina. There is no talking about her trying to become equal with Jewish men in the organization's board, but there is her experience of marginalization and her search for a safe space of realizing and implementing the German feminist values. And from this period, we have many sources when she becomes involved in writing about the needs of Jewish women in Palestine and preparing the ground for what Viola has also mentioned, the education and training and hygiene work among Jewish women in Palestine. I see my time is coming to the end, but I will still take a moment. Just to mention the last period of her autobiography, because I think of her biography, because it also helps us sharpen this period when anti-Semitism became such an important factor, and identity politics, German Jewish identity politics, shaped Goitein Straus' sense of belonging to this or other movement. Because in Weimar Germany, Goitein Straus is no longer involved in any Zionist organization. Why is that? Why is this woman who was committed to Zionism from her early age and committed also to the work of Zionist women in Germany suddenly not? Well, that is because the mainstream Jewish women's organization, the Jewish Women's League, is now accepting her with all her Zionist views. She's becoming the leader. She can publish in the Jewish Women's League magazine, and it changes the German Jews, it reflects the German Jews' attitude to Zionism, which now becomes a legitimate option for German Jews. I'll come to the end. So I think that looking at different self-definitions and social affiliation of Goitein Straus through the years, we create an opportunity to discuss how German and Jewish identity politics were reflected in women's movements and outside of Berlin, and we can contribute to, with the female perspective, to some broader phenomena that have already become a canon of understanding German Jewish history. Thank you.